Hi, my name's Emma, and today I'll be talking about drugs and drug addiction. So firstly, drugs have been a part of human history for centuries. Drugs are used for medical, recreational, and spiritual purposes, but alongside their benefits, there are also negative effects. So there could be risks to a drug. That could include addiction and long-term harm. So today I'll be talking about what are drugs, how they work, and why they can become addictive. So, firstly, what are drugs? A drug is defined as a chemical or a mixture of chemicals that can alter the body's physiological functions and structure. So really in general, that means that drugs can influence your mood, your thinking, and your behavior. Also, some drugs can create a good feeling, a euphoric feeling, which could be referred to as a high. But not all drugs have a positive effect. Certain drugs, especially psychoactive drugs, can lead to hallucinations and sensory illusions. Some psychoactive drugs can be legal, like alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, and some are illegal, like cocaine and ecstasy. These are the 4 types of psychoactive drugs. So we have stimulants, depressants, hallucinogens, sorry if I said that wrong, and opiates. So let's start with stimulants. Stimulants, like caffeine and cocaine, speed up your nervous system, which means that increase the energy and the alertness of the nervous system. A depressant drug, like let's say alcohol and sedatives, do the opposite of stimulants, so they slow down your nervous system and create this calming sedative effects. Hallucinogens, like LSD, distort your perception and create hallucinations. We also have opiates. Opiates include morphine, heroin, and they kind of act like painkillers while also providing the individual with a calm and euphoria feeling. Understanding these 4 categories of drugs really helps us understand how the drug targets different areas of the brain and how they produce and why they produce their unique effects. So, how the drug can affect the brain. So, drugs produce their effects by interacting with the brain's neurotransmitter systems. So, what that means is that they can mimic, block, alter the natural activities of the chemicals. So, for example, let's say the neurotransmitter receptors are against. Drugs are like a person trying to sneak in. So, the mimicking drug, which is called an agonist, would be the drug that mimics another person to get in the guest list, just by using a name, maybe by looking like the person. So they mimic to get in. There are also drugs like antagonists, which block drugs, not the natural occurring of drugs. So that would be kind of like the person sneaking in and then blocking the real person from getting in because the guy at the door thinks you're already inside because you snuck in. Some drugs can also have a reverse effect, which reverses the normal effects, or it can inhibit the reuptake of the making of neurotransmitters. So, this chemical manipulation is why drugs are really powerful and why they have such a big effect on mood, behavior, and perception. So, drug addiction. So, firstly, let's talk about what addictions there could be. So, addiction occurs when a repeated drug use changes your brain, making it harder to resist. So, there are 2 ways this can manifest in. It can manifest in tolerance, which is the needing more of drugs to achieve the same effect. Or it can be withdrawal, which is the unpleasant physical symptoms when the drug is absent. So let's look at the tolerance first. There are 3 types of tolerances. There is this dispositional tolerance, So that means when the body becomes more efficient at metabolizing the drug. There's, let's hope you don't die. There's behavioral tolerance, which is when a person learns to function despite the drug's effects. And there's also functional tolerance, which is when the neuron adjusts to the drug's influence. So let's go back to withdrawal. Withdrawal, on the other hand, has the symptoms like, let's say, nausea, headaches, or depression, and often mimics the opposite effects of the drug. So how I see this is that tolerance is the drug addiction where you can't notice someone has a drug addiction. They're hiding it the whole time. It's almost physically impossible to see. As for withdrawal, that's where you can really see the physical addiction, because withdrawal is the opposite of what the drug does, which is not what you want. You don't want that negative effect. You're taking the drug for the positive effects, not for the opposites. So that's how I see it. Next, the theories of addiction. So, firstly, there's a lot. Researchers have been developing several theories to explain why addiction occurs. So firstly, let's start with positive reinforcement. So that suggests that the pleasure effects of the drug motivate your repeated use. So the drug stimulates your brain dopamine pathways, which is linked to the reward pleasures, which creates cravings. There's also another theory, which is the negative reinforcement theory. This occurs when a person uses a drug to avoid the unpleasant withdrawal symptoms, which creates the cycle of dependence. So as I see these two, they're pretty much the same thing. It's just they both take the drug for a different reason. Positive reinforcement is because they like it so much, they want to use it again. Negative reinforcement is seen as like because you stop taking it, you have a bad feeling, so you want to take more of the drug to get that good feeling back. We have the 3-stage cycle of addiction. That means when a person there's binge and intoxication, which means that when a person takes a drug for its rewarding effects. So that's the first thing. Then we go down to withdrawal, negative effects. That is when the absence of a drug causes distress, which will then lead you to preoccupation and anticipation, which is the craving that leads to drug-seeking behavior, which brings you back to the beginning. So you're taking the drug, you feel good, drug slowly goes away, you get that negative feeling, that horrible, I want to take more drugs, which leads to the drug-seeking, where do I find drugs? I want drugs, to the, I got my drugs, I'm feeling happy, and it's a whole cycle. So there's also the incentive salient theory, which means that it's distinguishing the difference between liking and wanting. Liking refers to the pleasure of using a drug, while wanting refers to the cravings triggered by an environmental cue. So it's like the feeling an urge of the drug simply because you're in a film you're selling. So let's say you and your boyfriend love to go watch movies every week. And every time you go watch a movie to the movie theater, you always smoke before going. Like smoke weed or anything. A couple months later, you guys both decide you want to cut back on drugs and you guys just want to go clean. If the next week you decide to go watch a movie, the moment you step into that movie theater, you're going to get that wanting feeling because in the past you associated movie theater to drugs. So now you walk in the movie theater and you don't feel that drug that you normally have, you start having those cravings. Next is the effects of specific drugs. Firstly, we have nicotine, then we have alcohol, marijuana, cocaine. These are the 4 I'm going to talk about. So we have nicotine. Nicotine is a stimulant that binds to acetylcholine receptors in the brain, and they increase the dopamine release. So this creates that feeling of pleasure and alertness in someone. We then have alcohol. which is a depressant that enhances the GABA activity and reduces anxiety. And at low doses, this drug can act as a sedative. At low doses, it acts as an anxiety reduction, but at high doses, it acts as a sedative. Marijuana. So marijuana is really unique because it acts both as a depressant and an excitatory drug. Sorry, I totally said that wrong. So its effects can really vary, but often marijuana includes altered sensory perception and distorted sense of time. We then have cocaine. Cocaine is a stimulant that works as a dopamine reuptake inhibitor, which means it blocks dopamine receptors. It causes an intense euphoria, it causes energy, and it causes heightened emotions. Each drug alters neurotransmitters' activities differently, but they all share the potential to really create dependence through their own impacts on the brain reward system. So all of these have very different effects on the brain, and they all have different effects of addiction, but in the end, they almost all have the same effect on the rewarding part, because no matter what drug you're taking, you're always going to want that liking, that craving. And it doesn't mean just because it's a small drug like nicotine, people would think, doesn't mean you'll have a less wanting and craving as cocaine. They're almost both the same thing, because addiction is the same with everything. So, thank you so much. I hope you understood everything, even if I messed up a couple of words. And I hope learning about the drugs and what they can do to a brain, the person's brain, really helped you understand how dangerous addiction can be. I chose this because I really like how it explains how addiction can happen to someone very simply. So, as you know, not a lot of people know that caffeine is a drug. This could help someone probably understand that better. Thank you.